Hi, everyone. I'm Deanna Bruce, and welcome to my podcast, Thrive to Learn. I'm excited to have you all here and thrilled to have my friend Timothy Elliott join us. Timothy is an independent clinical social worker providing psychotherapy and supports to young people in the DC metropolitan region, and also does a lot of community outreach and trainings and supports the Rainbow Youth Alliance in Maryland. And so I'm excited to have you here with us, Timothy. Welcome.
Thank you, Deanna. It's so lovely to be here with you. I always love spending time together.
Yes, yes. Timothy and we've known each other for so long. We collaborated a lot when I was director of health and wellness for DC Public Schools, and we planned a lot of LGBTQ youth programming together.
Mhm.
And it was fun getting to know you then and staying in touch on
Yeah.
our own journeys. So I would love to start off talking about your journey and you're a social worker. Why is social work important to you? Why do you support LGBTQ youth in your work? And
Mm.
yeah, just tell me about your journey.
Absolutely. Well, it's interesting because I never wanted to be a social worker. If we go really far back to like age 5 or 6, I wanted to be a snowman. True story.
Nice.
I'm actually
That's
glad
awesome.
I'm a snowman, but
Do we call
entered
you
in.
Olaf?
We could, I know the song, so why not?
Yes.
Let's go. um, I will say, so I entered into school actually doing pre-med, wanting to go into emergency medicine. So I was an EMT and a firefighter for a while. And as I got into that, truth be told, it was chemistry that just had me really rethinking my life decisions. And at that point, I had a ponytail and a little goatee. I looked the part of the social worker, so I was
Yes,
told.
right.
And my
Or
advisor kind of
PBS executive.
well, yeah, exactly. Either one, you know?
Mhm.
But I went to my advisor at the time in the medical program I was in. He was a social worker and also a
Mhm.
paramedic. And like, Timothy, in talking to you and hearing just how much you care for people and the good you want to do, have you ever
Mhm.
thought of now,
Wow.
at that time, I had no idea what social workers were, and except the very limited view I would get on like primetime TV about usually
Mhm.
CPS going in and snatching babies up. And my
Sure.
initial reaction was, I don't
Yeah.
want to do that. So it
Right.
took me about 2 years of jumping around. I thought I was going to go into theater, go into English. Physics really caught my interest and was like, let me go there. But I
Whoa.
didn't. And I took my first social work class, and kind of the whole model of social work is when you're working with people, you have to understand not just the person, but the person and their environment. And that
Mm.
in family, the communities, the world at large, and taking all of those factors into play when you're doing any type of work. And that just really resonated with me, kind of that more holistic approach. And so
Mhm.
after I took my first class, I was off and running and went right from undergrad into grad school, and then out into the field working. Um, Thinking about the question around why working with LGBT youth. So I'm a queer man, and I came into my queer identity a little bit later in life. I was 25 when I came out and started understanding who I was.
Mhm.
And that was after I'd already gone to grad school and was doing work, but
Cool.
started seeing this huge need. At that point, I was working
Yeah.
in schools in DC,
Uh-huh.
and the schools that the kids in the school that were looking for that sense of community and belonging were the
Right.
queer kids.
Yeah.
Were
Yeah.
gender expansive kids, were the gay lesbian kids, the pansexual kids, and there just wasn't that much support available to them in the schools, and so I just kind of de
Mhm.
facto became the go-to person, and we had kind of
Mhm.
informal, GSAs or support groups to kind of help support them. I know at one school I tried to start a formal GSA, and
Right.
that got pushed down because of administration at the time, and so we started a respect club, and we kind of
Mhm.
had to get a little bit creative on, all right, these kids need support. They need role models, queer role models that are doing well. How can I show up for them, but also within the systems that we're working in, which sometimes is a challenge. So that's a little bit about my backstory,
Yeah.
and from there, I continued following the trail where the need was. And
Yeah.
I know you and I were connected. I was working at a health center in DC, running a
Mhm.
program trying to reduce barriers to mental health care for queer young people, especially queer young people who've experienced some level of trauma and victimization. And
Mm.
I continue the work kind of in my private practice, really supporting. I'd say majority of my clients are queer and are coming in not just to talk about their identity, but also to talk about the ways their identity has made living hard. And especially in today's day and age, there's a lot to talk about there, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so grateful that you're there for all of the young people that find you.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, it
is
truly is an honor, and it's interesting kinda going back, you'd mentioned Rainbow Youth Alliance, that's an organization I'm connected with in Montgomery
Mhm,
County, and
mhm,
and actually, this was probably 17 years ago. The director at the time came to me because she was stepping out of the position, and she said, "Timothy, I really want you to step in and take over running these groups and support for our queer high school students in the area." And I declined. I said, I can't do it yet because I wasn't at a point in my own journey with my queerness and understanding who I was that I felt I could effectively be a support in a way that I would want to be. And so
mhm.
she respected that. She said, "All right, bet. I will come back to you. I'm not letting this go." And she sure did. A year later, she came back. She was like, "All right, Timothy, are you ready?" And at that point, I was, and kind of stepped into
Mhm.
the point and had just an amazing experience with the young people, and still am on the advisory council for the organization, just supporting it
Nice.
from a different angle.
Sure,
So
sure. Well, that's pretty great. I'm glad that you knew yourself and that she respected what you were saying. I also encourage folks to show support for LGBTQ young people, even if you're not perfect. Just start showing
yeah.
support.
Yeah,
Uh,
and the reality is none of us are perfect.
no,
That is
no.
not a thing, and the more we try to hold on to it, the more damage
Yeah.
we can do. So
Mhm.
showing up with our authenticity, and sometimes I like the opportunity of having a client or a young person see me make a mistake because it makes me seem more human, which I am, and
Right.
it really normalizes that. Hey, it's not about the mistake we make, but it's
Yeah.
how do we move through that? How do we talk about it? How do we learn from
Mhm.
it? How do we find supports to kind of continue on going?
Mhm. Yeah, and leading with authenticity and being vulnerable when making mistakes, it's sort of one of the things that I do a lot of, and when I work with any of my clients, I really try to lead with empathy and show them how persuade them that empathy, is a faster way to get where you wanna go.
Mhm,
Not only having empathy for the stakeholders that you're working with, but also teaching empathy to those who are gonna implement your policies or implement your programs. And, if we could, I'd love to hear some more of your thoughts about the role of empathy in engaging families and communities. Because what is it like? Individual,
mhm,
family, school, community. Like, what's
right.
the role of empathy in those social
Yeah.
work
I
levels?
I I agree with you 100% that I think empathy in some ways is the core of what we do in any helping profession, because my
Mm,
belief is that you can be helpful only if you have some level of understanding and connection with the clients that you're working with,
yeah.
and kind of how that plays out. So I do a lot of parent work with our gender expansive trans young people. And one of the biggest things that I work on with parents and caregivers is how do I help them connect with a bit more empathy for their
Mhm,
young person?
mhm,
And it's challenging at times for some parents and caregivers where it's so outside of what they know and have learned and have lived or when it comes to gender and identities. It's like asking them to relearn from the ground up, and it can activate a lot of emotions, everything from
mhm.
frustration to grief to sadness to
Right.
fear.
Mhm,
And being able to kind of name those actually allows them to connect with more empathy, and really see their young person as a young person who's doing the best they can. uh,
right.
with sometimes, not a full deck, not I mean, the deck's stacked against so many of the young people I work with, and especially
Yeah.
now looking at kind of the state of the world, and policies coming through at different levels that are really, continuing to oppress the already marginalized,
Mhm,
that I think empathy is just so key to that.
mhm,
I do a lot of trainings too. So, in addition to kind of doing the clinical work with young people and families in my practice, I also am an adjunct professor at University of Maryland's School of Social Work. So I teach grad students in social work clinical skills, and that's a big thing that we're talking about, kind of at that level of how do you instill hope, and part of that hope process with clients
Mhm.
is focusing on how can you build your own empathy around them and understanding through
Wow.
curiosity and questions
Wow.
with clients, and
Yeah.
not assuming, hey, I've been to school and I know what you need, but really seeing it as a co-creation process of let's sit down together and all right, I'm coming in as a social worker with the skills and the experience that I'm bringing, but you are coming in with you. And at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. The knowledge you
Mhm.
have, the experience
Mhm.
that you lived, even the journey that's taken you from your bed to our office or the screen
Right.
where we're meeting in this
Mm.
moment. That's important. And that's what's going to be important for me to know as I'm understanding how I might be helpful for you, which that all comes down to empathy, kind of
Right.
understanding where the person is coming
Mm.
from.
Well, and I'm also hearing that you're building their trust through that by a demonstration of empathy, and that
Mm,
you're treating them with dignity to honor their own agency.
mhm,
So there's a lot in there. And I want to close with this idea of hope. We learned that a lot when I was at DC Public Schools working with our expectant and parenting students and our students with disabilities and our LGBTQ students was really pushing hope and giving them helping
mhm.
them build their hope was transformative when it came to their success in school, their success as parents, their success with their friendships, uh, and uh, and
Yeah,
that's if to be able to have empathy for a young person in order to help them see
mm,
hope is
mm.
that's a pretty powerful tool.
It is, and I think it goes in every area where I work, both with the young people, their caregivers, the upcoming social workers I'm training, the clinicians I train. I
Mhm.
do a lot of things with clinicians, and for me, one of the most powerful tools that I have is bearing witness to the pain and the hurt that people are in.
Yeah,
Yeah, that sometimes having someone else sit with you and listen to everything that you're holding and the pain of it
yeah,
without feeling like it's too much with and that can help instill that hope. That
yeah.
can help a young person especially feel like, all right, there is a light at the end of the tunnel because I can sit with Timothy and Timothy isn't feeling overwhelmed by everything.
Mm,
Even if it's shitty, to be honest. And there's a lot of shitty
mhm,
going on right now
right. Yeah.
with so many people in the world. But kind of that bearing witness to it is so important.
Mhm.
That
Great. Well, thank you so much. What an awesome conversation. I wish we could talk all day. We should do
probably
that someday. We
could.
gotta
We should exactly, exactly.
but I'm gonna close out with 2 questions. What keeps you up at night?
Mm. Well, thinking about what I had just shared around bearing witness, well, that's something I feel like I'm really good at. It takes a toll on me. I'm a human as well. And
Mhm.
sometimes I liken the work that I do kind of to the idea of a sin eater, someone who's taking in all of this badness, all of this darkness
Mm,
from client.
mhm.
And sometimes it gets really heavy. And so
Yeah.
that is one thing that sometimes will keep me up at night is thinking about, especially my trans and gender expansive young people right now, just how much they're carrying. I will tell you that kind of connecting with my own supports around kind of professionals and friends like you, Deanna, that I connect with and we talk and are able to kind of share some of that weight helps me be
Yeah.
able to sleep better at night. But that is one thing that keeps me up.
Thank you for sharing that. And what makes your heart sing?
Uh, right now, it's my cats. They bring me so much joy. I have 2 Siamese cats that
Yay.
are closer to dogs than I think any cat I've ever experienced. One of them I've taught to communicate. He has a communication pad with about 25 words up on it. He's very engaged with it. In fact,
That's
right before
Dennis, right?
that's Dennis, yep. Right before I
Uh-huh.
came into this podcast, he was pressing the Timothy work no button, telling me he didn't want me to go into my office to work. So Sometimes, especially at 5 a.m. when he's insistently pressing, Timothy, hungry now, Timothy, Timothy, hungry now. I wish that I didn't teach him that, but most times it gives me so much joy.
My goodness, that brings me so much joy as well. And you do know I am a follower of the cats, and
You
you know,
are, yeah, on their little Instagram page. They have
yes,
an Instagram.
yes.
It's Dennis, Denise, and Melvin. And Dennis goes by both Dennis and Denise.
Oh,
They're on Instagram and they have different videos and just fun photos up there to bring a little joy to everybody.
they're the best. I love them. I love them.
Hey,
They're probably the one of the only reasons I'm still on Instagram. But thank you so much for joining me. We've got ElliottMSW.com on your header, so folks know how to find you. And thank you all for joining. And if you want to learn more about this podcast, go to thrivetolearn.com. Thank you so much.
thank you.